The emergency lobby at Pinecrest Regional never truly quieted. Monitors chimed, shoes squeaked on tile. Someone called code blue, and the words bounced off glass. The automatic doors slid open and the sound thinned. Elliot Crane walked in wearing a suit too clean for an ER and a stare that did not blink. His lapel clip read, CEO. He stopped at the nurse's station and fixed his eyes on the staff. Who touched the VIP chart, he said. Nobody answered. A resident froze with a chart in hand. An orderly held a gurney halfway through a turn and simply stood there. Behind the desk, Sierra Quinn kept sorting IV kits, one sealed packet after another. When Crane's shadow fell over her, she looked up without hurry. Crane leaned in. My board is getting calls, he said. Start talking. Sierra's voice stayed even. Sir, the order was entered under the wrong patient profile. It was corrected within minutes. The patient was not harmed. A second passed. Crane's jaw tightened, his hand rose fast. The slap cracked down the corridor. A metal tray slipped from someone's fingers and screeched across the floor. An overhead mic was still live and carried that sound into nearby halls. Sierra did not flinch. She did not step back. She stood exactly where she was. Heat spread across her cheek, then darkened. A tear traced a clean line through the flush quiet and uninvited. You're suspended, Crane said, pointing at the doors. Get out. A veteran physician near the wall stared at Sierra's face, then at Crane's hand, and spoke under his breath. He picked the wrong person. Phones lifted. The room waited for Sierra to break. Somewhere in triage, a child started crying, then stopped when her mother hushed her. Even the vending machine seemed loud, its motor humming as if afraid to interrupt anything. She did not. Sierra pressed 2 fingers to her cheek, testing the bruise with clinical precision. Her sleeve lifted for a heartbeat, revealing a faded fabric band on her wrist. Numbers stitched into it like coordinates. She pulled the sleeve down, turned back to the supply cart, and glanced toward the ambulance bay where sirens were growing louder. If this hit you in the gut, tap like subscribe and stay here. I would love to know where you are watching from. Drop your city or country in the comments. Sierra kept her eyes on the supply cart as the sirens swelled outside close enough to make the glass doors tremble on their tracks. She heard the familiar rhythm of an incoming rig before she saw it. The quick stutter of brakes, the back doors thrown open, a paramedic's voice cutting through the lobby. 2 minutes out, hypotensive unresponsive. Crane was still standing there, breathing hard, enjoying the silence he had made. He expected her to shrink. He expected her to plead. Sierra did neither. She slid the last IV kit into place, squared the cart, and moved not toward the exit, but toward the ambulance bay. The motion was small and unremarkable. It was also absolute. A security guard stepped into her path, eyes darting between her cheek and Crane's suit. Ma'am, he said, you're suspended. Sierra looked at the guard's hands first, as if checking whether they were steady enough to help lift a stretcher. There's a patient arriving, she said. The guard hesitated, caught between policy and the sound of wheels screaming on tile. He shifted aside without deciding he had. Donna Briggs appeared at the edge of the hall, broad-shouldered and compact. Her hair pulled tight, her badge clipped high like a warning. She was the charge nurse on nights, the one who could clear a room with a glance. Donna's gaze snapped to Sierra's face, then to Crane, then back. Move, Donna told the hallway, not to anyone specific. People did. The doors burst open again, and cold air swept in with the gurney. A young man lay strapped down, skin-gray lips, tinged blue chest, barely rising. A paramedic jogged beside him, hands still on the bag valve mask, pumping with a frantic rhythm that gave away his fear. Found him in a bathroom at a gas station, the paramedic said. Needle on scene. Pulse thready. Pupils pinpoint. We gave naloxone, minimal response. Pressure is crashing. Sierra was already at the head of the bed, fingers at the carotid counting without looking like she was counting. Her voice stayed low. Airway. Set up suction. Get a second IV line. A resident rushed in, nearly colliding with the gurney. She's suspended, he blurted like it was a diagnosis. Donna's eyes flicked to him. Then go be suspended somewhere else, she said. Or pick up that monitor. The resident swallowed, grabbed the leads, and began attaching them with shaking hands. Crane watched from the lobby threshold. He could have shouted. He could have ordered her out again. But the ER had shifted into that state where titles went soft and hands mattered. The patient did not care who owned the hospital. Sierra did not look at Crane. She did not look at anyone's face longer than necessary. Her attention was on the slack jaw, the shallow breaths, the vein that disappeared when the blood pressure fell. 2 milligrams naloxone ready, a nurse called. Give it, Sierra said. The patient jerked a sudden, violent inhale, eyes snapping open with pure animal alarm. His body bucked against the straps, strength returning faster than sense. Easy, Sierra said, still at his head. You're safe. You're in the hospital. He fought harder, thrashing, trying to tear the line from his arm. A monitor alarm screamed as his heart rate spiked. The resident flinched back, hands raised as if the man's panic were contagious. Donna barked for security, then caught herself. She watched Sierra instead. Sierra's hand settled on the patient's forearm, not gripping, not forcing, just anchoring. Her tone did not rise. Breathe with me, she said. In, out, slow. The man's eyes rolled wild and glassy. He spat a curse and lunged again. Sierra's fingers shifted precise, 2 inches in and down, a pressure that made his muscles pause for a fraction of a second, long enough for oxygen to get in. The pause looked like luck to anyone who had never learned how to touch a body without provoking it. Sierra used that sliver of time to reset the mask, to align the airway, to bring the room back from the edge. Donna stepped in with a strap and locked it down. The team moved again. The patient's breathing smoothed. His eyelids fluttered. The monitor eased its pitch. Sierra finally stepped back. The bruise on her cheek had deepened into a mottled purple, like a storm settling in. She wiped her palms on her scrub pants, not because they were dirty, but because she always did after a surge, like closing a book. Dr. Mason Reed arrived late, hair, disheveled eyes scanning for the fastest explanation. He took in the patient, then Sierra's cheek, then Donna's rigid posture. What happened, he asked, and the words meant more than one thing. Donna did not answer right away. She flicked her chin toward the lobby where Crane had already turned away, as if boredom had set in. Paperwork happened, she said. Dr. Reed's jaw tightened. He looked at Sierra. Do you want me to call administration? Sierra adjusted the IV pump settings with the same calm she used to set a tray. No, she said. I want the labs back. It was not defiance. It was a refusal to let her own body become the center of the room. After the patient was stabilized and rolled deeper into the unit, the ER began to refill with its usual chaos. People exhaled in small bursts they did not notice. The overhead lights kept buzzing. The smell of antiseptic sat under everything like a second skin. In the staff corridor, a couple of nurses clustered with their phones angled like secrets. Sierra passed them, and their whispering thinned into silence, then resumed when she was a few steps away. Did you see it? One said, voice tight. She just took it. It's because she's soft, another replied. She lets people walk on her. A third laughed nervously. She's like a ghost. Always here, never says anything. Sierra did not turn. Her steps were even heel to toe, as if the floor had marks only she could see. The break room that night smelled like burnt coffee and microwaved noodles. Residents sprawled on chairs, talking loud, trying to sound unbothered. A young doctor flicked a paper napkin at the trash and missed. Quinn's too gentle for this place, he said. You need granite in trauma, not silk. Someone snorted. She takes things personal. It makes you slow. Donna stood by the counter, stirring coffee that had already gone cold. She set the spoon down with a clink that was too sharp for the room. You all talk like you're invincible, she said. The resident shrugged. It's the ER. You either harden up or you leave. Donna leaned forward just enough to make the conversation feel smaller. I've watched Sierra Quinn hold a screaming addict still with a whisper, she said. I've watched her triage a hallway of bodies and never pick the wrong one. You confuse quiet with weak. That's your mistake. The room went awkward. Someone checked their phone, pretending not to listen. Donna turned and walked out, coffee untouched. Sierra did not join them. She never did. She ate standing up by a supply alcove, a few bites of something bland between calls. When she had a spare minute, she pulled a small notebook from her pocket and opened it. Not to write gossip or schedules, but to sketch. Lines, branches, a map of nerves and vessels as if she were preparing for a fight that required more than muscle. A new nurse barely out of school noticed the notebook and drifted closer. "That's anatomy," she said, surprised. Sierra kept her pencil moving. "It helps me stay ready," she replied, for what the nurse asked. Sierra looked up briefly. Her eyes were calm, but there was something in them that did not belong to fluorescent lights. "For the part where people panic," she said, then returned to her drawing. Later, just before dawn, a transport intern named Caleb rushed in with a chart pressed to his chest and sweat on his upper lip. He was the kind of eager that got people hurt. "I think I messed up," he said, voice cracking. "I moved the wrong chart into the wrong rack. Dr. Reed is going to kill me." Sierra took the chart from him and scanned it in 3 seconds. Her thumb found the error. The patient name did not match the wristband number. It was small, ordinary, the sort of mistake that could cascade into something ugly if left alone. She handed it back. "Fix it," she said. Caleb swallowed. "They'll write me up." Sierra's gaze stayed on the hallway, on the stream of gurneys and footsteps. "Then you will learn from it," she replied. "But you fix it first." He hesitated. "Are you going to tell Donna?" Sierra shook her head once. "Not if you correct it." Caleb blinked at her, surprised by mercy. He nodded hard and hurried off. By the time the sun began to turn the windows pale, Sierra's suspension paperwork had found its way to her. An envelope sat on the counter at the nurse's station, crisp and official, her name printed in neat black letters like a verdict. Donna saw it. Her mouth tightened. "They're really doing it." Sierra opened it without drama. She read the lines once, then folded the paper back into the envelope with careful fingers as if it were fragile. Donna lowered her voice. "You can fight this." Sierra slipped the envelope into her pocket. "Patients don't get to pause," she said. A distant shout rose from triage, the sharp bark of security, the scrape of shoes as people ran. Donna's head snapped up. What now? Sierra was already moving the bruise on her cheek, catching the light for a moment before she disappeared into the corridor, where alarms were starting to stack one on top of another until the sound became a wall. Sierra slipped into the corridor where the alarms had started piling on each other, a layered chorus that turned stomachs tight. The smell changed, first antiseptic laced with sweat and something sour. A security radio crackled. Someone shouted a room number. 312 now. Donna called, already jogging. He is swinging at staff. Sierra rounded the corner and saw the knot of bodies at the doorway. 2 orderlies, both bigger than average, were pinned against the frame like furniture. A security officer had one arm up to shield his face. Inside the room, a man thrashed on the bed, wrists cuffed legs, kicking hard enough to rattle the rails. He was massive neck, thick veins raised along his forearms. Foam clung to the corner of his mouth. "Sir, stop," the security officer yelled, voice cracking. "Stop moving." The man answered with a guttural roar and wrenched against the cuffs again, metal biting into skin. The monitor jumped. Oxygen tubing snapped free and whipped across the bed. Dr. Mason Reed pushed through the crowd, stethoscope swinging. His eyes darted to the vitals and then to the patient's pupils. "What did he take?" he asked. "Nobody knows." An orderly gasped, struggling to keep the man from rolling off the mattress. He came in confused, then he went berserk. "Sedate him," a resident blurted. "He is going to hurt someone." Dr. Reed hesitated, jaw clenched. If he is on something that depresses respiration, a heavy sedative drops him. The patient bucked again, and the cuff chain snapped taut. The bed shifted sideways. A nurse yelped and stumbled back. Donna looked at Sierra as if bracing for a decision to land. "Code team is tied up in trauma," she said. "We do not have extra hands." Sierra stepped past the doorway. The room was bright and too small for the amount of panic inside it. Sierra took one breath and made it quiet in her own chest, shoulders loose, hands low. She did not charge the bed. She did not square off like a fighter. She angled herself to the side where the patient's kicking leg could not catch her knee. The man's eyes rolled toward her wild, unfocused. He snapped his head and spat strings of saliva catching the light. "Get off me!" he screamed. "Get off me!" Sierra's voice came out low and steady, almost conversational. "I hear you," she said. "Your body thinks it is trapped. It is not." He jerked harder, muscles flexing like cables. "You are lying." Sierra did not raise her volume. "You are in a hospital room," she said. "You are not a man. You are not dying." The man laughed sharp and broken. "You do not know that." Sierra watched his shoulders, not his eyes. She tracked the smallest shifts in tension. She waited for the split second where force had to reset itself. When it came, she moved not fast, just exact. Her fingers pressed into a spot near the base of his thumb, then slid, finding a point that did not punish, only redirected. It was a touch that looked gentle. The effect was immediate. His arm stopped trying to rip free, not because he decided to behave, but because his body took an involuntary pause. Sierra used that pause to speak again, her words timed to the opening. "Breathe," she said. "In through your nose, out through your mouth. Count with me." The man's chest heaved. He tried to shout again, but the sound broke into a cough. The oxygen was still off his face. Sierra lifted the tubing and fitted the mask back, one hand, steadying his jaw without forcing it. Dr. Reed stared. "How did you do that?" he demanded, half anger, half disbelief. Sierra did not look at him. Her eyes stayed on the patient's breathing. "He is drowning in adrenaline," she said. "Give him something he can follow." The man's eyes flicked up again, confused by the lack of combat in her tone. "What is happening?" he rasped. "You are coming back," Sierra replied. "Stay with my voice." Donna stepped in swift and practiced, tightening a restraint that had slipped loose. The orderlies regained their footing. The security officer lowered his arm, blinking as if waking from a bad dream. The patient's panic shrank to something smaller. His kicks slowed. The monitor softened its shriek into a steadier rhythm. Dr. Reed exhaled a sharp sound through his nose. He leaned close to the monitor, then back to the patient, then to Sierra's hands as if trying to catch a trick. "Chart it," he said to the resident, who was still wide-eyed. The resident nodded, fingers trembling over the computer keyboard. "What do I write?" the resident whispered, looking between Dr. Reed and Sierra. Dr. Reed's mouth tightened as if he hated the truth he did not understand. "Spontaneous de-escalation," he said, then stopped listening to his own words. They sounded ridiculous even to him. He looked at Sierra again. "That is not spontaneous." Sierra finally lifted her gaze, brief and calm. "He is breathing," she said. "That is the important part." The patient's eyelids fluttered. "Cold," he murmured. Donna covered him with a blanket. "You are safe," she told him, voice lower, now grounded. Sierra stepped back into the hall, and the noise of the ER rushed in again. It felt louder after that pocket of control. Donna followed her out, closing the door behind them like sealing a storm inside a jar. Donna's eyes stayed on Sierra's cheek, still bruised from the slap, now darker under the fluorescent light. "You should not be here," she said softly. "They put you on paper as suspended." Sierra flexed her fingers once like a pianist checking a joint. "Paper does not stop bleeding," she answered. Down the hall, two nurses whispered near a linen cart, their faces half hidden behind the stacked sheets. One of them glanced at Sierra, then looked away fast. "She just walked in there," the younger one murmured, like she was not afraid. "Maybe she cannot feel fear," the other said, trying to make it a joke. It did not land. Donna heard them. She did not correct them. Her expression was harder than a reprimand. She walked away to answer a ringing phone, leaving the words hanging in the air where they could settle on the staff like dust. The rest of the shift moved in jagged bursts. A child with asthma, an older man with crushing chest pain, a woman who arrived sobbing, then went silent when Sierra held her hand long enough for the tremors to ease. Sierra did not collect gratitude. She did not look for it. She moved through tasks as if each one was a rung in a ladder only she could see. Between patients, she found corners of stillness, a supply alcove, a quiet charting station, the small break room when it was empty. She took out her notebook again and sketched arteries branching like rivers, nerves like fine roots. The pencil lines were clean, deliberate. There was no decorative flourish, only function. Near dawn, Dr. Reed caught her at the medication station. His eyes were bloodshot with fatigue and frustration. "Quinn," he said quieter than usual. "That thing in 312. You did not use force. You did not raise your voice. You did not even look him in the eye." Sierra capped a syringe and set it down. "Eye contact can be a challenge," she said. He needed an anchor, not a fight. Dr. Reed studied her face, then the bruise. "Crane did that," he said, voice rough. Sierra did not answer. Her silence was not agreement, not denial. It was a wall she had built long ago and maintained with daily attention. Dr. Reed took a step closer. "You can file a report," he said. "You can go to HR. You can go to the police." Sierra's hand paused on the cabinet handle. She looked at him in a way that made his words feel heavy. "I am not the only one he would do that to," she replied. "And I am not the only one who would stay quiet." Dr. Reed swallowed. "Then let someone help you." Sierra turned back to the cabinet, pulled out a vial, and checked the label twice. "Help the patients," she said. That is enough. When her shift finally ended, the sky outside the ambulance bay was a thin gray sheet. The parking lot lights still burned. Sierra walked to her car, with her shoulders relaxed, her steps steady as if she had not spent the night holding chaos by the throat. Her apartment was on the second floor of a plain building a few miles from the hospital. No decorations in the hallway. No welcome mat. Inside, everything was orderly, almost sterile. The counters were clear. The sink was dry. There were no photos on the walls, no frames on the shelves, no clutter that suggested a past worth displaying. Sierra set her keys in the same spot by the door. She washed her hands for a full count, scrubbing under her nails until the water ran colder. She changed out of her scrubs and folded them, not tossing them into a heap, then placed them in a basket with the same precision she used in the supply room. In the bedroom closet, behind a row of plain shirts, she pulled out a small wooden box. It was old corners, worn smooth, the surface scratched like it had traveled. A dial lock sat on the front, numbers faint from use. Sierra's fingers turned the dial with practiced certainty. Click. The lid opened. Inside velvet lining held a few objects that did not belong to the life she lived on paper. A charred fabric patch, edges darkened as if kissed by fire, embroidered with a crimson bird and the words, "Crimson Wren." A faded photograph folded at the creases, figures in dusty uniforms standing close together, faces half lost in shadow. A tarnished silver cross engraved with a single date, 11/04/2017. Sierra did not take the photograph out. She did not stare at it like a memory. She touched the patch, once thumb, brushing the burned edge, then let her hand rest on the cross for a heartbeat, as if checking that it was still real. Her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. A message preview flashed and vanished. Another buzz followed, then another rapid enough to feel like a pulse. Sierra did not pick it up. She closed the box, turned the dial, and slid it back into the closet. Then she stood in the quiet of her apartment, listening to the distant hum of the city and the closer, steadier sound of her own breathing until the buzzing stopped and the silence returned. Sierra slept for 3 hours with her phone face down on the counter, as if the screen itself could spill something into the room. When she woke, the bruise on her cheek had settled into a darker shade, a blunt stamp that no amount of concealer could fully erase. She stood in the bathroom light and studied it the way she studied a wound, not with self-pity, but with measurement. In the kitchen, her phone showed 16 missed calls and a flood of messages stacked like triage tags. Donna, Dr. Reed, an unknown number with no name, the hospital's internal alerts. She scrolled once, then stopped. She showered, ate half a piece of toast, and dressed in clean scrubs anyway. Outside Fayetteville was still damp from last night's fog. Pine trees stood rigid along the road, their needles dark and glossy. The drive to Pinecrest Regional felt shorter than it should have. Sierra's hands stayed loose on the steering wheel. Her breathing stayed even. At the employee entrance, a security guard with tired eyes blocked the door. His badge read, Lewis. He did not look like someone who enjoyed confrontation. Ma'am, Lewis said, holding a clipboard close to his chest. I got told you're not cleared to clock in. Sierra stopped an arm's length away. Is the ER full? She asked. Lewis blinked. It's always full. Then I'm going in, she said. Lewis swallowed. His gaze flicked to the bruise and back to her eyes, like he was trying to decide what kind of person would walk into work after being struck and publicly dismissed. I can't let you, he murmured, and it sounded like an apology. Sierra's voice stayed soft. Lewis, if you push me out that door, you'll still have patients inside that need hands. If you step aside, you will have followed an order with your mouth and served the building with your body. Lewis's jaw flexed. He looked down at the clipboard, then at the hallway beyond the glass. A gurney rolled past. A nurse jogged, ponytail swinging face tight. The building did what it always did, indifferent to paperwork. Lewis stepped to the side without saying yes. Inside, the air smelled like coffee disinfectant and exhaustion. The night shift faces looked gray around the eyes. The day shift was arriving with fresh scrubs and the same familiar dread. The bruise on Sierra's cheek pulled attention like a magnet. Conversations thinned when she passed. A young nurse named Kelsey stared, then blurted, "Are you okay?" Sierra nodded once. "I'm working," she replied. Donna emerged from behind the nurse's station, like a storm cloud that had found legs. She took Sierra's wrist and pulled her into a small alcove near the supply cages out of the direct line of sight. "You did not answer your phone," Donna said, voice low and clipped. Sierra held Donna's gaze. "I was asleep." Donna's eyes flicked to the bruise. "You were supposed to be at home." "I was supposed to be gone," Sierra said. Patients did not agree. Donna let out a slow breath through her nose. The anger in her posture shifted not toward Sierra, but toward the building itself. "The clip is everywhere," she said. "Not the whole thing. Somebody cut it. But the slap is clear. The sound is clear." Sierra did not react. People saw it with their eyes. "Now they're seeing it with their phones," Donna snapped. "Administration is losing control of the story, and they hate that." Sierra's gaze drifted past Donna's shoulder to the hallway. A mother held a toddler with a fever. A man in a wheelchair stared at the floor. A paramedic leaned against the wall, still in uniform, waiting for a signature. The ER was a river, and it did not pause to admire its own currents. Donna followed her gaze and softened a fraction. "Crane is doing a briefing," she said. "Not the public kind. The board kind. He's calling it a discipline issue." Sierra's fingers curled once, then relaxed. "He can call it whatever he wants." Donna's expression hardened again. "He's trying to bury you." Sierra's voice stayed level. "He's trying to bury noise. I don't make noise." Donna opened her mouth, then shut it, recognizing the wall she could not push through. She gave Sierra a look that was equal parts warning and loyalty. "Stay close," she said. "Do your job. Let me fight the suits." Sierra nodded and walked back into the flow. In a conference room upstairs, the marble table gleamed under expensive lights. Elliot Crane paced with a phone in one hand and a printed agenda in the other. His tie was perfectly centered. His eyes were not. A row of board members sat stiffly, fingers interlaced, faces arranged into corporate neutrality. At the far end, a woman in a navy blazer typed on a laptop, her screen filled with bullet points and phrasing designed to make violence sound like policy. The hospital's public relations director, Mara Whitfield, did not blink often. Crane slapped the agenda down. "We keep this contained," he said. "One employee, one incident corrective action. That's it." A board member with silver hair cleared his throat. "The video is spreading beyond staff circles," he said. "There are comments." Crane scoffed. "Comments don't run hospitals." Mara's fingers paused over the keys. "Public perception affects funding and recruitment," she said, her tone carefully calm. "And we are a federal partner facility." Crane waved a hand. "Then we craft the narrative." She was insubordinate. She mishandled a VIP order. She couldn't handle the pressure. Another board member, younger, jaw tight, leaned forward. There is no record of that error being hers, he said. The audit trail shows someone else entered the order. Crane's stare sharpened. So we adjust the message, he said, as if he were rearranging furniture. We emphasize discipline culture. We emphasize accountability in the lower ranks. The room shifted uncomfortably at the phrase lower ranks. Some eyes dropped. Some faces stayed blank. Mara clicked to a new slide. You cannot directly claim she caused the error, she said. That creates liability. Crane smiled without warmth. Then we say she had a disciplinary pattern. Behavioral concerns. Lack of team cohesion. The silver-haired board member's lips pressed thin. You struck her, he said quietly. Crane's smile vanished. I corrected a problem, he snapped. I set an example. Silence filled the room, heavy and awkward. Downstairs, Sierra was in triage when Dr. Jenna Cole arrived, white coat, crisp hair, pulled back tight, eyes bright with a kind of anger that needed somewhere to land. Jenna was a younger, attending brilliant and impatient with cowardice. She walked straight to Sierra and stopped close enough to see the bruise in detail. Tell me you filed a report, Jenna said. Sierra finished placing a pulse ox on a patient's finger, then looked up. No. Jenna's nostrils flared. He assaulted you. Sierra checked the patient's name band. Yes. And you're just going to keep working, Jenna said, voice rising. Sierra's gaze stayed steady. Yes. Jenna took a breath, forcing her voice down. This is not normal, Sierra. This is not acceptable. You can press charges. You can sue. You can go to the media yourself. Sierra adjusted the blood pressure cuff and waited for the machine to finish. The numbers appeared. She wrote them on the chart with neat handwriting. Only then did she answer. The law is slow, Sierra said. Bleeding is fast. Jenna stared at her, stunned by the calm. This isn't only about you, she said. It's about every nurse he thinks he can slap. Sierra's eyes softened just a fraction. I know, she said. Then act like it, Jenna pressed. Sierra glanced toward the trauma bays. A nurse was hanging fluids. A resident was arguing with a paramedic over a medication list. A child was coughing with a tight wheeze, ribs pulling. The ER was full of urgent truths that did not care about dignity. I am acting, Sierra said. I am keeping the room alive. Jenna's hands balled into fists at her sides, then relaxed. Her anger had nowhere clean to go. He's holding a briefing, she said. Board admin PR, they're going to spin this into your fault. Sierra nodded once. Let them talk. Jenna looked at her like she was trying to read a language she had never learned. How are you like this? She whispered. Sierra did not answer. She turned to the next patient, a man with a trembling hand and the smell of alcohol on his breath. Her voice gentled. Tell me what you took, she said, as if the world had not just tried to break her in public. Across the department, Dr. Reed watched Jenna's posture. Donna's eyes, Sierra's quiet movement. He walked over, lowering his voice. Administration is asking questions, he said to Donna. They want witness statements. Donna's mouth curled. They want people to say Sierra provoked him. Dr. Reed's jaw tightened. I won't. Donna gave him a hard look. Most will. Out of fear, out of habit. A nurse at the station turned her monitor slightly away, hiding what she was reading. The corner of the screen showed the frozen frame of the video. Crane's arm raised. Sierra's face turned with the impact. The sound could be imagined even without audio. The nurse swallowed and minimized the window as Sierra passed. Sierra did not stop. She did not look at the screen. Her steps stayed even. At noon, the hospital's internal bulletin pushed a message to every device. A statement about professionalism. A reminder of chain of command. A line about a staff member being placed on administrative leave pending review. Sierra read it once and slid the phone back into her pocket. Donna caught her near the medication room. They are trying to keep you off the floor, Donna said. They'll send security again. Sierra nodded. Then security will be busy. Donna stared at her, then shook her head like she did not know whether to laugh or swear. You make me nervous, she muttered. Sierra's voice was quiet. Good. It means you're paying attention. In the late afternoon, the lobby filled with suits. Board members gathered in a semicircle near the reception desk, faces tight, voices low. Crane moved among them, with practiced confidence, smiling too hard, shaking hands like he could squeeze reality back into shape. Sierra walked through the lobby carrying a small box of supplies, nothing dramatic. Just gauze tape saline flushes. A simple load. Crane's eyes found her. His smile faltered for half a second, then returned polished and cruel. He turned his body slightly, positioning himself so she had to pass within arm's reach as if proximity were a reminder of ownership. Sierra walked by without looking at him. Crane leaned toward a board member and spoke loud enough for nearby ears. "We'll announce her termination by end of day," he said. "Clean break. Clean message." Sierra kept walking. Her phone vibrated once in her pocket, a sharper buzz than the rest, like a knock on a locked door. She waited until she reached a quiet corner near radiology, then pulled it out. A single text from an unknown number. "We see you. Stay inside." Sierra read the message again, once, then a second time, as if the words might change under her stare. "We see you. Stay inside." Her thumb hovered over the keyboard. She did not type. She did not call. She locked the screen and slid the phone back into her pocket, keeping her face smooth. Only her eyes sharpened like a camera pulling focus. Radiology doors whooshed open behind her. A transporter rolled a stretcher past the patient, groaning the wheels rattling over a threshold seam. The normal noise returned thick and busy, but the text sat in Sierra's body like a pebble in a shoe. Donna appeared at the end of the hall, walking fast with a clipboard hugged to her chest. She saw Sierra standing still and slowed just enough to read her posture. "You look like you just heard bad news," Donna said. Sierra's voice stayed quiet. "Maybe I did." Donna's gaze dropped to Sierra's pocket. "Is this about Crane?" Sierra shook her head once. "Not only him." Donna's mouth tightened. She started to speak, but the overhead speakers cut in with a flat, urgent tone. "All available staff prepare for incoming trauma. Multiple critical. Ambulances en route." The hall changed. People stopped chatting. Shoes turned. A nurse jogged toward the trauma bays. A respiratory therapist grabbed a cart and pushed hard enough to make the wheels squeal. Donna was already moving. "Trauma 1 and 2, she called over her shoulder. "Clear the halls, call blood bank." Sierra followed without being told. The ambulance bay doors opened and stayed open, letting in cold air and the sharp smell of exhaust. Sirens layered on top of each other until they blurred into one long sound. Outside, flashing lights painted the walls red and blue in quick pulses. A paramedic ran in with a tablet in hand, face tight. "3 incoming," he said. "Vehicle collision near Fort Liberty. Military transport. 2 unstable, 1 combative. Possible blast injuries from secondary impact. We are 5 minutes out." A doctor stepped into the bay, tall and broad-shouldered hair, perfectly combed as if he belonged on a brochure. Dr. Grant Halverson, trauma director, looked calm from far away. Up close, his eyes were too bright. "Get the trauma team ready," Halverson said. "Call surgery. Call neuro. Call ortho. I want imaging on standby." Donna did not wait for more. She turned on her heel and shouted orders into the unit. Staff poured into place like water finding channels. Sierra moved to the trauma carts and checked supplies in a fast, silent pattern. Suction. Airway kit, chest tubes, tourniquets, hemostatic gauze. She squeezed each packet once to confirm it was sealed, her hands steady. Halverson glanced at her cheek and then away, as if the bruise offended his sense of control. "Quinn," he said, voice clipped. "Are you cleared to be on shift?" Sierra did not look up. "There are 3 critical patients coming," she replied. Halverson's jaw flexed. "Answer the question." Donna stepped in. "She's with me," Donna said. "If you want someone off the floor, you can come do it yourselves." Halverson looked like he might argue. Then the first ambulance backed in and the doors flew open. The first gurney came out fast. A young man lay strapped down, face pale, under a smear of dried blood. His uniform shirt had been cut open. His chest rose in shallow, uneven pulls. A pressure dressing was taped to his side, already soaked dark. 22-year-old male, the paramedic called. Ejection from vehicle. Suspected shrapnel from the dash. Tension signs on the right. Pressure is 80/40. Heart rate 140. We decompressed once in the field. Minimal improvement. Halverson stepped in, hands up. Trauma 1. Chest tube tray now. Type and cross. Start massive transfusion. Sierra was already peeling open the chest tube kit, laying out instruments in the order they would be used. Her eyes flicked to the patient's neck veins, his trachea, the way his chest moved more on one side than the other. A second gurney rolled out behind the first. This patient was older, maybe late 20s, face bruised, eyes half open. A tourniquet sat high on his thigh, tight enough to blanch the skin. Second patient, another paramedic shouted. Crush injury, pelvis unstable. We placed a binder. He's been in and out. BP 90 systolic dropping. Donna took that gurney toward trauma 2 with 2 nurses. Halverson stayed with the first patient, barking orders, his voice too loud. Then the third gurney arrived, and the air in the bay shifted. The soldier on it was young, broad across the shoulders and drenched in sweat. His eyes were wide and unfocused. He fought the straps with raw, panicked strength, twisting hard enough to rock the gurney. His pulse ox alarmed in a frantic rhythm. He woke up in the rig, the medic said, breathless. He keeps yelling call sign stuff. We tried to calm him. He ripped out one line. We got another in. Heart rate is all over. We heard him say Bravo 5. That might be his designation. Halverson frowned at the display on the monitor. Sedate him, he snapped. We cannot treat him like this. The medic hesitated. His rhythm is not stable. He had a weird run in the back. I don't like pushing anything heavy. Halverson's expression hardened. Then restrain him. 2 orderlies stepped in, bracing for a fight. Sierra's gaze locked onto the soldier's shoulder, where the cut fabric of his sleeve had pulled back. A tattoo sat there, crisp and detailed, a crimson bird with wings spread and a small set of numbers beneath it. The image hit her like a hand on her chest. For half a second, her breath caught. She blinked once, slow, and the moment vanished from her face. Her hands kept moving. She stepped closer to the gurney, not rushing, not flinching. Halverson saw her approach. Quinn, he warned, voice sharp. Do not interfere. Sierra did not look at him. She reached for the soldier's hand, not gripping, just finding skin. The soldier jerked and snapped his head toward her. No, he gasped. No, 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 not again. Not the road. His eyes flicked across the ceiling lights like they were incoming fire. His jaw trembled. Sierra leaned in so her voice could land without shouting. When she spoke, it was not soft in a nurse way. It was low, firm, measured like a radio operator giving a clear transmission. You are stable, Bravo 5, she said. The soldier froze for a fraction of a second, surprised by the words. Sierra kept her tone steady. I need you to hold your breath for 3 counts. 1, 2, 3. He tried, failed, then tried again. The attempt was messy, but it was an attempt, and his body followed it. Halverson stared. What are you doing? He demanded. Sierra did not answer him. Her eyes stayed on the tattoo, then lifted to the soldier's face. Her gaze was unblinking now, focused and exact. Listen to me, she said to the soldier. Grid 49, Coast Road. Delta sector is clear. The soldier's eyes widened. The fight drained from his shoulders in a visible wave. His hands stopped pulling at the straps. His breathing slowed, still ragged, but no longer frantic. He stared up at her like he had just found a familiar signal in static. Ren, he rasped, voice cracking. Crimson Ren? Sierra's fingers tightened once around his hand, then relaxed. That's right, she said. Stay with me. You are safe here. The room around them fell quiet in a stunned pocket. Even the monitors sounded farther away. Halverson recovered first. Anger flared as confusion. What signal did you just give him? He demanded. What code was that? Sierra finally turned her head slightly, eyes still calm. A verbal anchor, she said. He needed to comply so we could treat him. Halverson opened his mouth, then closed it as the soldier's oxygen saturation ticked up and his heart rate settled into something more workable. The data did not argue. Donna slid in beside Sierra with a fresh IV setup. Line is ready, Donna said, watching Sierra like she was watching a door that could open into anything. Sierra nodded. Slow fluids, she said. Get blood ready. His pressure is going to swing. A nurse handed Sierra a roll of gauze. Another offered a pressure dressing. Halverson pointed at a bleeding wound near the soldier's hip where the fabric was shredded and the skin was torn. "We need to control that," he said, voice loud again. "Clamp, pack, move." Sierra's eyes assessed the wound with quick precision. She did not grab a clamp. She did not ask for permission. She reached for a tourniquet kit and a thick hemostatic dressing. Halverson frowned. "That's not a limb." Sierra spoke without looking up. "Junctional bleed," she said. "You cannot clamp what you cannot see. We stop the flow first." She packed the dressing with firm, controlled pressure, then layered a second pad, then a third, building a seal that used the body's shape instead of fighting it. Her hands moved in a pattern that looked unfamiliar to the civilian staff, a sequence of pressure points and wraps designed for speed and low visibility. The soldier hissed once, then gripped Sierra's hand again, trusting her enough to bear the pain without thrashing. His eyes stayed on her face, as if her calm was the only stable thing in the room. Donna watched the technique eyes narrowing as she learned. "I've never seen that wrap," she said under her breath. Sierra did not slow. "Keep pressure," she instructed. "Do not let it slide. If it slips, he bleeds." Halverson hovered uncertain, then stepped in to help secure the dressing. His hands were skilled, but his rhythm did not match hers. He kept trying to rush. Sierra's pace did not change. The soldier's breathing stayed anchored. The monitor alarms softened. A nurse called out a blood pressure that stopped falling. Halverson swallowed and looked at Sierra's hands, then at her bruise, then at the soldier's tattoo again, as if the pieces were starting to form a picture he did not want. "Who are you?" he asked, quieter now. Sierra did not answer. She checked the dressing, confirmed the seal, then looked at the soldier. "You did good," she told him, voice low. His lips moved. "Ma'am," he whispered, and the word carried the weight of training, not courtesy. Sierra's face did not change. "Stay with us," she said. The gurney rolled toward imaging with Sierra walking beside it, one hand on the rail, eyes scanning the soldier's skin for signs of shock. Donna followed with the chart, her jaw set, her body tight with a mix of awe and anger. In the hallway, staff stared as the group passed. They were used to trauma. They were not used to a suspended nurse calming a soldier with a phrase that sounded like a battlefield transmission. A resident jogged up to Halverson. "What was that grid thing?" he whispered. Halverson did not have an answer. His voice came out strained. "Focus on your tasks," he snapped, then softer, "and do not lose that dressing." Outside, the late afternoon light sat low over the parking lot, turning windshields into sheets of glare. Near the far edge, two men stood beside a black SUV, not leaning, not talking much. They watched the ambulance bay doors, like they were timing something. One of them lifted a phone to his ear, his posture, straight eyes scanning the building's entrances with a practiced sweep. Inside the hospital, the ER kept moving, but the feeling in the air had changed. Sierra felt it in the way heads turned, in the way voices dipped when she passed, in the way her pockets seemed heavier where her phone sat silent. The two men by the black SUV did not look like they had anywhere else to be. Their clothes were plain, their hair cut short, their hands empty. Even so, the way they stood made the parking lot feel smaller. No slouch, no restless shifting, eyes moving in slow, deliberate sweeps from door to door, window to window. Major Nolan Ford lifted his phone to his ear again, keeping his gaze on the ambulance bay. "Confirmed visual," he said quietly. "Subject is inside active. She made contact with the military casualty." Captain Elise Mercer watched the gurney disappear into the building, her eyes narrowing. "You heard the words she used," she replied. "Grid reference, sector clearance. That is not something you pick up from a movie." Ford's jaw tightened once. "No, it is muscle memory." A pair of nurses hurried through the side entrance with paper bags and tired faces. They glanced at the SUV, then looked away. Elise tracked them for a beat, not because they were suspicious, but because she tracked everything. "Do we go in?" she asked. Ford did not answer right away. He watched the automatic doors slide open, and shut, as if the building were breathing. "We confirm the status," he said. "Then we decide what the facility can handle without panic." Elise looked at him. The CEO already caused panic. Ford's eyes stayed on the doors. The CEO caused noise. We cannot afford noise. They moved at the same time, crossing the lot with a steady pace. Not hurried. Not casual, either. The kind of walk that made people unconsciously step out of the way. Inside the lobby, the air was warm and smelled faintly of floor polish. A television on the wall played a daytime talk show with the volume turned down. Patients sat in rows, shoulders hunched, clutching paperwork and water bottles. At the reception desk, a young clerk looked up and blinked hard, like she was trying to place them. "Can I help you?" she asked. Ford set a slim leather wallet on the counter and opened it just enough for the clerk to see the badge inside. "We need records," he said. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "We are here on a federal liaison matter." The clerk's eyes widened. She glanced down the hall, then back at the badge. "Records is upstairs," she said quickly. "Third floor. You need an escort." Elise gave a small nod. "We will manage." They did not wait for the clerk to finish explaining. They walked with the same quiet control through the lobby, past the gift shop, past the elevator bank, and into a stainless steel elevator that smelled like antiseptic and coffee. When the doors closed, Elise finally spoke in a lower tone. "If the file is still sealed, we have a bigger problem." Ford looked at the numbers above the door as they climbed. "If the file is sealed, it is doing its job." The elevator opened on 3. A hallway of beige walls and fluorescent lights stretched in both directions. A sign read, "Health Information Management." Inside the room hummed with printers and quiet keyboard clicks. A woman in glasses looked up from a desk stacked with folders. Her nameplate read, Lydia Kim. She had the expression of someone who had learned that hospital crises arrived in many costumes. "Can I help you?" Lydia asked. Ford showed the badge again this time, with a folded letter behind it. Lydia's eyes flicked across the paper. Her posture straightened. "Yes," she said, voice thinning. "Please, come with me." She led them into a smaller office with a door that closed softly. A computer terminal waited on the desk. Lydia sat down and logged in her fingers, moving fast but careful. "I need the full legal name," she said. Ford did not hesitate. "Sierra Quinn," Lydia typed. The screen blinked, then a warning box appeared. Her eyes widened again. "This is restricted," she whispered more to herself than to them. Elise leaned forward just enough to see the red banner on the screen. "Active Protective Directive. Do not disclose. Do not copy. Do not print." Lydia swallowed. "I cannot open it," she said, voice tight. "I do not have that clearance." Ford slid the folded letter across the desk, not touching her hands. "You can," he said. "With that authorization." Lydia's eyes scanned the header, then the signature. Whatever she read made her breathe in sharply through her nose. "This is signed by General Harlan Pierce," she said. "Yes," Ford replied. Lydia looked from the letter to them, then to the closed door behind her. "Why is she here?" she asked. "If she is under protective directive, why is she working in a public hospital?" Elise answered before Ford could, "Because she chose it." Lydia's gaze went distant for a moment, as if she were picturing a person in scrubs and trying to match it to the kind of file that carried a general's signature. "Is she in danger?" Lydia asked. Ford kept his voice measured. "Has she been harmed?" Lydia hesitated. There was an incident, she admitted. The CEO struck her. "We have staff reports. There is video." Elise's eyes hardened. "He hit her," she said, and the words came out flat and cold. Lydia nodded, once embarrassed and furious at the same time. "He is trying to call it a disciplinary matter. He is upstairs with the board sometimes. He has people watching the phones." Ford's expression did not change, but something in his stillness sharpened. "Open the file," he said. Lydia's hands hovered over the keyboard. "I can trigger an alert," she warned. Ford nodded. "Trigger it." Lydia clicked through the warning screens. Another box appeared. "Confirm access. Logged and monitored." She pressed confirm. A folder opened, not like a typical employee record, but like a classified dossier forced into a hospital system. Most sections were blacked out. Dates and unit names were partially masked. A photograph thumbnail showed a woman in uniform, face-shadowed eyes unreadable. Lydia scrolled once and stopped at a line that made her go still. She turned the monitor slightly toward Ford and Elise. Active watch and protect. Observe only. Do not engage. Status non-negotiable. Any threat to subject is threat to national asset. Under it was a short note, plain and absolute, with the same signature as the authorization letter. Elise exhaled slowly, the way someone exhales after reading a map that confirms a road is real. Ford stared at the screen for a long beat. This directive was never lifted, he said. Lydia looked at him. It says observe only. Does that mean you are not supposed to talk to her? Ford's eyes stayed on the directive. It means she does not need to know she is being protected, he replied. It means we do not bring danger to her door by reminding anyone she is valuable. Elise leaned back, scanning the file with a practiced eye. Observe only ends when someone puts hands on her, she said. Ford's phone vibrated in his pocket. He did not pull it out yet. He asked Lydia, "Has anyone else tried to access this record?" Lydia's cheeks reddened. The public relations director requested a copy of her disciplinary history, she said. I told her it was sealed. She pushed. Elise's gaze cut to Lydia. Did she try anyway? Lydia nodded tight. She called our supervisor. She said she had board approval. She wanted it for a termination packet. Ford's voice stayed quiet. Show me the access logs. Lydia clicked into another screen. A list appeared time-stamped. Several attempts. Most denied. One flagged as elevated request. Elise leaned in. That attempt is from an administrative terminal, she said. Not from your department. Lydia's hands trembled slightly now. How is that possible? Ford pulled his phone out and made one call, turning his body slightly away from Lydia, as if to keep her from hearing too much. His tone stayed controlled. This is Ford. Confirm the alert was received. I need a lockout on all non-cleared terminals immediately. Yes. Now. He ended the call and looked at Lydia. Your system is compromised by internal pressure, he said. It will be locked down. Lydia looked sick. They will blame me. Elise shook her head once. They will not, she said. Not if you do what we ask. Lydia swallowed. What do you need? Ford pointed to a name on the file, one of the few not fully redacted. We need the contact chain. Who holds responsibility for this directive? Lydia scrolled and found a section with a secure number. It was labeled Joint Personnel Recovery Liaison with a secondary note. Direct notification to Command Group. Ford copied the number into his phone, then looked up. Do you have a private line? He asked. Lydia gestured to the desk phone. Yes. Ford dialed from his own phone anyway, not trusting anything he did not control. Elise stood near the door, listening to the hallway outside, her posture loose but ready. The call connected. A voice answered, clipped and professional. Ford spoke in a low, steady cadence. Major Nolan Ford, Liaison Detachment. We have confirmed location and active engagement. Protective directive has been breached by civilian leadership. We require escalation. A pause. Then the voice on the line softened by a fraction. Confirm identity. Ford's eyes went to Lydia's screen again, to the photograph, to the dates. Confirmed, he said. Subject is Sierra Quinn. She is working under civilian cover at Pinecrest Regional. She has stabilized a military casualty today using operational anchoring language. She was physically assaulted yesterday by the facility chief executive. Another pause longer. Stand by, the voice said. Ford ended the call and looked at Elise. We are no longer in observe-only mode, he said. Elise gave a small nod, the kind that meant she had already accepted that reality the moment she heard the words he hit her. Lydia looked between them. What does that mean for the hospital? Ford's gaze was steady. It means we prevent anyone from touching her again, he replied. It means we keep the facility from doing something stupid because they do not understand what they are holding. Downstairs, that stupidity was already in motion. In a glass-walled office near administration, Mara Whitfield held a phone tight to her ear, nails tapping on the desk in impatient bursts. I do not care that it says sealed, she said. Find me something, anything. I need a behavioral pattern. I need a reason that sounds clean. On the other end, a supervisor stammered. Mara, the system is blocking it. It's not a normal seal. It is giving a federal restriction warning. Mara's eyes narrowed. This is a hospital, she snapped. Not a military base. Override it. A soft tone interrupted the call. Mara's computer screen froze. A message appeared. Access revoked. Terminal locked. Mara stared at it as if the screen had insulted her. What is this? She hissed. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number flashed briefly. Cease access attempts. Do not pursue protected file. Mara's mouth fell open. She looked around her office, suddenly aware of glass walls of reflections of how visible she was. On the third floor, Lydia's computer chimed and a small icon turned green. System lockout confirmed, she said quietly. Elise checked her own phone. Support is in motion, she murmured. Ford looked at Lydia. You will receive calls, he said. You will be pressured. You will say the same thing each time. The file is sealed. You do not have clearance. You cannot help them. Lydia nodded, swallowing fear. They will threaten my job. Elise's expression did not soften, but her voice did. Your job is safe, she said. Keep doing it well. Ford and Elise left the office without rushing. In the hallway, they stopped at a window that overlooked the parking lot. The black SUV sat where it had been, now joined by another vehicle parked 2 rows away. A man inside that second car looked up at the building, then down at a phone, then up again. Ford's phone vibrated once. He answered immediately. Yes, he said. His face stayed still, but his eyes sharpened. Yes, sir, he said again. Understood. He ended the call and slipped the phone back into his pocket. Elise studied him. Command group acknowledged, she said not as a question. Ford nodded once. They did, he replied. We maintain discretion. We maintain control. And we do not let the facility make unilateral decisions about her. Elise looked out at the lot again, then back toward the stairwell. We need eyes on her at all times, she said. Ford agreed. We do it quietly. They moved down to the ground floor and took a position that looked accidental, 2 visitors standing near a hallway junction out of the main current, close enough to see the ER entrance and the administration corridor. They did not lean. They did not chat. They watched. A few minutes later, Sierra passed through the far end of the hall, with Donna both moving fast, both focused on a new set of labs. Sierra's bruise was still visible dark against her skin. She did not look toward Ford and Elise. If she noticed them, she did not show it. Elise's gaze followed Sierra until she disappeared behind the ER doors. She carries herself like she has lived through worse than this building, Elise said softly. Ford's voice was barely above a whisper. She has. The hospital lights stayed bright as the afternoon slipped toward evening. Inside phones rang, printers spit paper. Staff moved from room to room, tired hands doing necessary work. In the lobby, the board members came and went in tight clusters, faces, tense voices low. Near the entrance, Ford and Elise remained still, their eyes scanning every approach, every pause, every person who walked too fast or too slow. The building kept breathing through its doors, and the 2 officers watched that breath, the way you watch a corridor in the dark, patient and unblinking. The lobby felt like a different building by evening. The ER still roared behind the double doors, but out front, everything was polished and tense. The marble floors shone. The air smelled faintly of lemon cleaner. People in suits gathered in small knots, speaking in low voices that carried anyway. Elliot Crane moved through them like he owned the oxygen. He had changed his tie. The knot was perfect. His hair was combed with the careful attention of a man who believed appearance could rewrite fact. He kept smiling, but it kept slipping at the corners. Mara Whitfield walked beside him with a tablet held tight against her ribs. She scrolled without stopping, clenched eyes flicking up every few seconds to read the room. When she spoke, she kept her voice soft, but the words were sharp. The internal statement is out, she said. We are positioning the situation as a professionalism concern. We are emphasizing chain of command. Crane nodded, still smiling. Good. The video is still circulating, Mara added. Crane's smile tightened. It will burn out. It is not burning out. Mara said finally, letting irritation color her tone. Nursing groups have it. Staff families have it. A local reporter messaged me. I did not answer. Crane's eyes narrowed. Then answer with the line we wrote. Mara's fingers paused on the screen. If someone asks why you put hands on her, a line does not erase that. Crane leaned closer so only she could hear. I do not need erasure, he said. I need dominance. This hospital runs on hierarchy. Mara's gaze slid past him to the ER doors. A paramedic pushed through with a patient and did not look up. Hierarchy does not stop blood, she murmured. Crane ignored that. He turned to the board members assembling near the information desk, forming an uncomfortable semicircle. Their faces were careful. Their eyes were tired. Some looked like they had not slept since the clip went viral. Crane clapped his hands once, lightly, as if calling a meeting in a conference room instead of a hospital lobby. Thank you for coming on short notice, he said. We will address this quickly. We will protect the institution. A board member with silver hair shifted his weight. Elliot. The optics are severe, he said. Crane's expression stayed pleasant. Optics are managed by decisive action, he replied. Mara glanced at the elevators, then back at Crane. Legal asked me to remind you, she said, that termination language matters. Use the term restructuring if you can. Crane nodded as if she had said the sky was blue. I know how to speak, he said. Across the lobby, near a hallway junction, Major Nolan Ford and Captain Elise Mercer stood still, half in shadow, half in fluorescent spill. They looked like visitors waiting for directions. They did not lean. They did not fidget. They watched. Elise's eyes tracked Crane as he paced in front of the board. He is about to do it, she said quietly. Ford's gaze moved from Crane to the ER doors and back again. Yes, he replied. Elise's voice dropped another notch. Observe only ended when he struck her. He is escalating again. Ford did not answer immediately. His jaw tightened once, then relaxed. He tapped his phone screen without lifting it into view, as if sending a message without inviting attention. In the ER, Sierra did not know about the semicircle of suits in the lobby. Or if she did know, she gave it no space in her face. She moved through trauma too, with a stack of lab results in her hand and a calm that made other people's nerves feel loud. Donna met her near a workstation, eyes sharp, voice low. They are gathering, Donna said. He is out there with the board. Sierra looked at the labs again, then at the monitor above the bed. This potassium is dangerous, she said. We need to correct it. Donna's frustration flickered. You heard me. Sierra nodded once. I heard you. And you do not care, Donna said. Sierra's gaze lifted, gentle but steady. I care, she replied. I am just not giving him my hands. Donna swallowed a curse. She glanced toward the hallway, then back. If security comes for you, I want you behind me. Sierra's voice stayed quiet. If security comes, they will have patience to step around. Donna shook her head. You are impossible. Sierra moved to the bedside and spoke softly to the patient, a middle-aged woman trembling under a thin blanket. We are going to give you medication that steadies your heart, she said. You might feel warmth in your chest. That is normal. The woman's eyes filled. Am I going to die? She whispered. Sierra rested her hand on the blanket near the woman's wrist, not gripping, just anchoring. Not here, she said. Not today. The woman's breathing eased. Sierra's hand stayed steady. A few feet away, Dr. Jenna Cole stood at the medication station, watching Sierra work with an expression that could not decide between admiration and anger. When Sierra stepped away from the bed, Jenna intercepted her. You are letting him write the story, Jenna said, voice tight. Sierra checked the drip rate on the IV line. I am keeping people alive, she answered. Jenna's eyes darted to the bruise. He hit you in front of everyone. Yes. And now he is out there smiling, Jenna snapped. He is going to fire you in public so the board can clap and feel safe again. Sierra's fingers paused on the pump. She looked up. Then the board will clap, she said. Jenna leaned in. Do you hear yourself? Sierra's gaze did not waver. Jenna. I am not confused, she replied. I am choosing where to spend my energy. Jenna's throat bobbed as she swallowed. Her anger did not disappear, but it shifted, looking for a target that could take it. I want to tear him apart, she whispered. Sierra's eyes softened slightly. That is how he wins, she said. Jenna stared at her, breathing hard, then turned away sharply to hide the wetness that flashed in her eyes. In the lobby, Crane lifted his voice a touch, making sure nearby staff heard. The hospital loved an audience, and he used that fact like a tool. We have to maintain standards, he said. If we allow emotional instability in high-pressure units, we risk patient safety. A nurse pushing a wheelchair slowed, listening. Her mouth tightened. She kept moving. Crane continued. Effective immediately, we are separating from an employee whose performance and conduct no longer align with Pinecrest values. The silver-haired board member shifted again. Elliot, he said quietly, this is not the place. Crane smiled wider. This is exactly the place, he replied. Transparency builds trust. Mara's eyes narrowed. She knew this was not transparency. It was theater. Crane straightened his shoulders and looked toward the ER doors as if he could see Sierra through them. Sierra Quinn, he said, speaking the name with deliberate finality, is hereby terminated. The word landed in the lobby like a dropped instrument. Heavy, sharp, public. A few staff members stopped walking. Someone near the elevator let out a small sound of disbelief. A patient in a waiting chair looked up confused, then looked away again. Mara watched the reaction ripple and made a fast note on her tablet, already thinking about containment. Ford's gaze stayed on Crane. Elise's posture did not change, but the air around her felt colder. Crane was still talking. We wish her well, he said, voice smooth, and we remind all staff that discipline is not optional. He glanced at the board, expecting nods. He got silence and stiff faces instead. The silver-haired board member cleared his throat again. We have not voted, he said. Crane's eyes flashed. This is an executive decision, he replied. You hired me to act. You were hired to lead another board member, said voice strained. Not to strike employees. Crane's smile returned, but it had teeth now. I corrected a problem, he said. A small commotion stirred near the information desk. A staff member's phone rang loudly, the sound too bright in the tense quiet. She silenced it quickly and looked down at the screen, face paling, then glanced toward the entrance like she had heard something outside. Ford's phone vibrated in his pocket. He did not pull it out. He simply shifted his weight subtly, placing himself at an angle where he could see both the front doors and the administration hallway. Elise murmured, movement outside. Ford's eyes went to the glass. The parking lot lights reflected back, but behind the reflections, headlights slid into view slow and deliberate, not like a family arriving for visiting hours. Inside the ER, Donna felt the shift before she heard it. The department got quieter in a strange way, the way a room quiets when people sense a change that is not on the monitors. She stepped into the hallway and looked toward the lobby. Sierra came out a moment later with a small box of supplies in her arms, tape and gauze, and flushes her steps steady. She had no reason to be in the lobby, but the supply room entrance required crossing it. She walked through the doors and into the bright open space. Conversations thinned, eyes turned. Crane saw her and lifted his chin, satisfied. Perfect timing, he said, voice carrying. Ms. Quinn, you are no longer employed here. Please leave the premises. Sierra stopped not because she was afraid, but because the direct line between her and the supply hallway was now blocked by a man who wanted a scene. She set the box of supplies down on a chair near the wall, careful not to spill anything. Then she looked at Crane. Her face held no drama. The bruise was stark under the lobby lights. Her eyes were clear. I am taking care of patients, she said. Crane's smile widened as if he had been handed a microphone. Not anymore, he replied. Security. A security officer hesitated near the entrance to the ER corridor. He looked at Donna. Donna stared back, daring him. Crane snapped his fingers, impatient. Now. The officer took one step forward, then stopped when a low rumble pressed through the glass doors. It was not thunder. It was not the usual ambulance engine. It was heavier, Several heads turned toward the entrance at the same time, drawn by sound before sight. The glass doors vibrated slightly on their tracks. Outside headlights stacked in a line that did not belong to visitors. The beams held steady, bright, and controlled. Ford and Elise did not move, but their focus sharpened their stillness, becoming something intentional. Elise's hand drifted near her pocket, not reaching in, just ready. Crane kept talking, trying to keep the lobby under his voice. "This is a civilian facility," he said, eyes on Sierra, words aimed at the crowd. "No one is above policy." Sierra did not look away from him. "Then apply it evenly," she replied. The glass doors slid open. Cold air rolled in, carrying the smell of exhaust and the faint metallic bite of winter. A vehicle pulled up so close, the headlights washed the lobby floor in white. The first set of tires stopped with a soft, heavy sound, controlled, practiced. The lobby held its breath. The cold air carried into the lobby in a slow, heavy wave, and the headlights laid a bright strip across the marble like a stage light. The first black SUV stopped sideways in front of the entrance, not parking blocking. A second slid into place behind it, then a third, forming a clean, hard line that cut the hospital off from the street. For a moment, nobody spoke. Elliot Crane blinked as if the scene had been arranged to insult him. He took a half step toward the doors, chin lifted, ready to reclaim the room with a handshake and a smile. The first door opened again, and 3 figures stepped inside. They did not wear suits. They wore full dress uniforms that caught the lobby lights and threw them back in sharp flashes of metal and ribbon. Their shoulders carried stars. Their chests carried rows of medals that looked too heavy to be decorative. Their shoes struck the floor in unison, a sound that had nothing to do with hospital life. Lieutenant General Raymond Carver led tall, broad face carved into calm authority. At his right walked Major General Tessa Lang, her posture rigid, gaze level, her expression controlled in a way that made it feel dangerous. At his left was Brigadier General Adrian Shaw, the kind of officer who looked like he could dismantle an argument with a single sentence. Behind them, more uniformed personnel flowed through the doorway in disciplined spacing, not crowding, not rushing. The lobby seemed to shrink around them. A patient in a waiting chair lowered his phone slowly, eyes wide. A volunteer at the information desk froze with pamphlets in hand. A board member's mouth opened, then closed, without sound. Crane stepped forward anyway, hand extended, voice warming into practiced charm. "Generals, welcome. This is an honor. I am Elliot Crane, Chief Executive Officer of Pinecrest Regional. Perhaps we can take a tour and discuss any concerns you may have." Carver did not reach for Crane's hand. He did not even slow. His eyes passed through Crane as if he were part of the furniture, and the trio continued forward with the same measured pace, their focus locked on one point in the lobby. Sierra Quinn stood near the wall where she had set down the box of supplies. Her bruised cheek was stark under the bright lights. Donna stood a step behind her shoulders, squared ready to be a shield. Sierra did not move. She did not straighten to attention. She did not step back. Her face stayed calm, but her eyes sharpened, tracking the approach with a kind of quiet recognition that did not show fear. The 3 generals stopped directly in front of her. The lobby held its breath. Carver's heels clicked together. His back snapped straight. His right hand came up in a crisp motion. Lang and Shaw did the same. 3 simultaneous salutes cut the air, cleanly precise and formal, the kind performed for someone who outranked the room. The sound in the lobby did not stop. It simply became irrelevant. A nurse near the elevators let out a small gasp, then covered her mouth. A resident's clipboard slipped from his fingers and hit the floor with a hollow slap. A board member stumbled back a half step as if the floor had shifted. Crane's face drained of color. He turned his head, looking from the generals to Sierra, then back again as though he were trying to force the scene into a logic he could control. His mouth moved before his mind caught up. "This is a civilian facility," he said, voice cracking slightly. "You cannot just come in here and disrupt hospital operations." General Carver lowered his salute, his expression unchanged. His voice was calm and carried easily across the marble. "We are not here to disrupt," he said. We are here to retrieve one of ours. Sierra's gaze stayed level. Her voice came out quiet, steady. I am not in the army, she said. I work here. Major General Lang stepped forward a fraction, her eyes bright with something that looked like pride, held under tight control. You serve here, she corrected gently. That is not the same thing as belonging here. Sierra did not flinch. I have paid my debt, she said. The words sounded rehearsed, the kind that had been repeated until they lost their edges. I am done with that life. Brigadier General Shaw's eyes softened by a degree that still did not count as softness. You are not done, Shaw said. You are Major Sierra Quinn. Call sign Crimson Wren. A ripple ran through the staff like a current. Some had no idea what they were hearing. Others reacted to the tone, to the certainty, to the weight those words carried. Crane found his voice again, sharper now, desperate to place himself back in command. This is ridiculous, he said. She is an employee I terminated for misconduct. You have no jurisdiction over my staffing decisions. Shaw turned his head toward Crane, and the lobby felt colder. Your staffing decisions are not our concern, Shaw said. Your conduct is. Crane bristled, clutching at authority. I do not answer to you. Shaw's voice stayed even. Your facility receives federal funding. Your facility treats active duty service members. Your facility operates under federal compliance frameworks. You struck her in public. You attempted to remove her from care duties. Those actions have consequences. Crane took a step toward Shaw, then stopped when two figures moved out of the background and placed themselves between him and the generals with quiet precision. Major Nolan Ford, Captain Elise Mercer. They had been in the building the entire time unnoticed until they chose to be seen. Ford's expression was blank in the way trained professionals kept it blank. Elise's eyes were focused, her posture ready without being theatrical. Crane stared at them, confused, then angry. Who are you? He snapped. Ford spoke calmly. Major Nolan Ford. Liaison detachment. Elise's voice followed. Captain Elise Mercer. Crane's throat worked. This is insane, he said. I did not know her history. I did not know she was some kind of whatever you are claiming she is. She is a nurse, Lang answered, and her tone carried a different kind of authority, the kind that made excuses sound childish. She is a nurse, Lang said. And she is also one of the most accomplished combat medics ever assigned under our command structure. Sierra's eyes flicked down and back up, as if the words made a door in her mind that she did not want opened in public. Carver watched her carefully, not like a commander inspecting a subordinate, but like someone acknowledging a person's choice to disappear. You were listed as missing, Carver said, voice quieter now but still audible. Your status remained protected. It remained protected because your value was not symbolic. It was operational. Crane swallowed, trying to regain footing. That does not matter here, he insisted. She works for me. I run this hospital. Carver's gaze returned to Crane, and the warmth in Crane's argument died in the air. You do not run her, Carver said. You never did. Mara Whitfield stood near the board tablet, forgotten at her side. Her face had gone pale. She looked at Sierra's bruise again, then at the 3 uniforms and the stars, and her jaw trembled slightly. Her eyes darted to the board members, as if searching for someone else to take responsibility. The silver-haired board member cleared his throat, voice unsteady. General, he said to Carver, we were not informed of any federal involvement. This is the first time we have heard of any protective status. Shaw nodded once. You were not informed because you did not need to be, Shaw replied. Your chief executive officer created a scenario where you needed to be. Crane spun toward the board, anger flaring. Do not sit there like this is my fault, he snapped. You told me to manage staff discipline. You told me to protect the hospital. A board member, younger, jaw tight, stared back at him. We did not tell you to hit a nurse, he said. Another board member leaned forward, voice tense. Elliot, stop talking. Crane's eyes flashed, then softened into panic as he realized the board was moving away from him. He turned back to the general's, voice cracking. I can fix this, he said quickly. I can apologize. I can reinstate her. We can offer compensation. A settlement. Whatever you want. Sierra's face did not change. Carver's voice stayed calm. This is not a negotiation, he said. Crane tried one more angle, grasping at legality. "You cannot detain me," he said. "This is not a military base." Ford stepped slightly closer, keeping his hands visible. "Sir Ford said you are being directed to remain in place, pending formal questioning." Crane's eyes widened. "By who?" Elise answered, voice flat. "By federal authority." Crane's chest rose and fell faster. "This is a misunderstanding," he insisted, and the word misunderstanding sounded weak in his own mouth. Shaw glanced at Sierra again, then back to Crane. "Misunderstanding is an incorrect chart label," Shaw said. "A slap is a decision." Crane flinched as if struck by the sentence. Sierra finally spoke, her voice quiet, not pleading, not accusing. "I did not want this," she said, and it sounded like a truth that had been carried a long time. Lang's eyes softened again, and her voice lowered. "We know," she replied. "You chose a life of service that kept you away from flags and ceremonies. That does not erase who you are." Crane stared at Sierra, the realization hitting him in waves. His face twisted as he tried to turn the story back into something that made him the center. "You let me do it," he blurted at Sierra, and the accusation came out ugly. "You stood there and took it. You did not even fight back." Donna's shoulders tensed, ready to explode. But Sierra lifted a hand slightly, a small motion that stopped Donna like a brake. Sierra's eyes stayed on Crane. "I was in a hospital," she said. "I was at work." The words were simple. They did not need decoration. The room heard them. A nurse near the waiting chairs started to cry silently, wiping her face with the back of her hand. Carver turned to Sierra, offering his forearm in a formal gesture. "Come with us," he said, voice respectful. "We will take you off this floor and out of this situation." Sierra looked at his forearm, then at the ER doors where alarms still sounded faintly through the walls. She shook her head once. "No," she said. Lang's brows lifted slightly. "Major." Sierra's voice remained steady. "I am not leaving my patients," she said. "Not like this." Shaw watched her with a look that held understanding and a measured kind of frustration. "They can replace a nurse," Shaw said. Sierra's eyes did not waver. "They can replace a shift," she replied. "They cannot replace trust." Carver held still, then lowered his arm. He did not look offended. He looked like a commander, recognizing an unmovable position. Crane seized on Sierra's refusal desperation, turning into a crooked attempt at triumph. "See," he said quickly to the board and the generals, "she is choosing to stay. That means this is not your matter. She is my employee." Ford's head turned slightly toward Crane. "She is not your employee," he said evenly. Crane blinked. "I terminated her." Ford's reply was calm and final. "Your termination is not recognized." Crane's mouth opened, then shut. His shoulders sagged as if gravity had increased. A uniformed security detail entered the lobby from the front doors, separate from hospital security. Their posture was disciplined. Their presence was quiet and unmistakable. They moved toward Crane without urgency, like professionals completing a task. Crane backed up a half step, then another. He bumped into a potted plant. The pot scraped loudly against marble, the sound ridiculous against the stillness. "Wait," he said, voice thin. "You cannot do this. My career, my reputation." Ford stepped in closer, voice low, so only Crane could hear. "Your reputation ended when your hand landed on her face," he said. Crane's eyes glassed over. He tried to speak again, but the words did not come out clean. A sound like a sob caught in his throat. The security detail took his arms firm, but controlled. Crane tensed, then went slack, his body suddenly aware that money did not open this door. The board members stood frozen. Then, as if a spell broke, they began to move away from Crane, distance forming in their bodies before it formed in their words. Mara Whitfield stared at her tablet, then lowered it, hands shaking slightly. Her eyes met Elise's for a brief moment. Elise did not blink. Crane was guided toward a side corridor. He twisted his head once, looking back at the lobby, searching for anyone to rescue him. No one stepped forward. Sierra watched without expression. Carver turned back to Sierra. "We are not here to make a spectacle," he said. "But we will not allow you to be harmed." Sierra's voice was quiet. "Then let me work," she said. Lang studied her bruise and her jaw tightened. "You should not have to," she replied. Sierra bent down, picked up the box of supplies she had set on the chair, and held it against her torso. Tape, gauze, flushes, ordinary tools, the kind that kept people alive without ceremony. Donna shifted closer. "I am with her," Donna said, voice firm. Carver nodded once, acknowledging Donna's stance. Then he looked at the board, his eyes sweeping across them. "You will cooperate," he said. It was not a request. The silver-haired board member nodded rapidly. "Yes, General," he said. "Yes." Carver's gaze returned to Sierra, his voice lowered, respectful. "Major Quinn," he said. Sierra's chin lifted slightly. Her eyes held a flicker of something old quickly contained. "Do not call me that," she said. Carver's expression did not change. "Understood," he replied. Sierra. She nodded once and turned toward the ER doors with the supply box in her arms. As she walked, something subtle happened in the lobby. A nurse stepped aside and stood straighter. An orderly stopped moving and watched her pass. A resident who had mocked her earlier stared at the bruise and swallowed hard. No one cheered. No one clapped. The room did not know how to celebrate this. But the space around Sierra changed. She pushed through the double doors into the ER, and the alarms and voices swallowed her again, returning her to the only place she seemed to consider real. Donna followed. The generals remained in the lobby, their presence now part of the building's atmosphere, a hard boundary around a woman who had tried to live unnoticed. In the hallway near administration, Ford and Elise took positions that allowed them to see the flow of staff and the path Crane had been taken down. They spoke to each other in quiet phrases, coordination without drama. In the lobby, board members began whispering not about policy, not about optics, but about survival. Some pulled out phones and typed quickly, composing messages that sounded like apologies and self-protection. And in the ER, Sierra placed the supply box back on the cart, adjusted a roll of tape until it sat straight, and stepped into the next room as if none of the marble and metals existed at all. The ER swallowed Sierra the moment she stepped through the double doors. The lobby had marble and metals. Back here, it was fluorescent light, sharp smells, and the constant churn of bodies. A monitor screamed in Trauma 3. Someone called for respiratory. A stretcher rolled past, with a patient curled tight hands pressed to their abdomen. Sierra moved like nothing had happened. She checked a bag of saline for air bubbles, hung it set the drip rate, and spoke to a patient in a steady voice that made the room feel less jagged. Donna stayed close, not hovering, just present. Her eyes kept flicking toward the doors that led back to the lobby, as if she expected the building to try and pull Sierra away again. Dr. Jenna Cole appeared at the edge of the trauma bay, breathless hair slightly loose from running. She looked at Sierra like she was seeing her for the first time, and still could not accept the shape of what she had seen. "There are generals in the lobby," Jenna said, voice low. 3, full dress. Sierra did not look up from the IV pump. "I know," Jenna blinked. "You know." Sierra adjusted the tubing clamp by a millimeter. "They walked in front of my eyes," she said. Jenna lowered her voice even more. "People are calling you Major. People are saying things." Sierra's gaze lifted for a moment, calm but firm. "They can say what they want," she replied. "This patient's pressure is dropping. Help me." The directness startled Jenna into motion. She stepped in, grabbed a blood pressure cuff, and began working anger and awe forced into usefulness. In the hallway outside, staff moved differently. They did not crowd Sierra. They did not question her presence the way they had earlier. They watched her hands. They listened to her voice. Even the residents who liked to fill the air with opinions spoke less, as if the room had learned that noise was not power. Dr. Grant Halverson came in from imaging with a tablet clutched in his hands, face tight. He paused near the nurse's station and looked at Sierra across the department. His pride fought with his confusion. His eyes flicked to Donna. "What happened out there?" he asked quietly. "In the lobby." Donna did not soften for him. "Reality," she said. Halverson's jaw flexed. "I did not know," he muttered like that was a defense. Donna's gaze stayed flat. "Nobody asked," she replied. "Everybody assumed." Halverson looked toward Sierra again. He watched her speak to a trembling patient, watched the way she set the room with 2 sentences. The bruise on her cheek was still there, darker now, impossible to ignore. He took a step forward, hesitated, then crossed the floor. "Sierra," he said, stopping at a respectful distance. Sierra turned her head slightly. "Doctor." Halverson swallowed. "Earlier, with the soldier, the anchoring language, the dressing technique, I questioned you." Sierra's expression stayed neutral. "You were responsible for the room," she replied. Halvorson's shoulders dropped a fraction. "I misread you," he said. The words came out rough. "I thought quiet meant uncertain." "I was wrong." Sierra held his gaze. She did not forgive him with a smile. She did not punish him with silence. She simply let the statement sit as truth. Halverson cleared his throat. "If you are willing, I want to understand that technique. Not to imitate it blindly, to use it correctly." Sierra nodded once. "After we stabilize the next wave," she said. Halverson's face tightened with relief and embarrassment. "Yes," he replied. "Of course." He stepped back and returned to his station, moving like someone who had just been forced to see the limits of his own training. Up front, the lobby remained under a different kind of control. Major Ford and Captain Mercer stayed near the corridor junction, eyes tracking movement with quiet discipline. The 3 generals stood with the board, not crowding them, not raising their voices, just existing as a boundary the hospital could not pretend was not there. The board moved fast once fear found them. They convened in a side conference room, doors closed, voices muffled behind glass. People in suits leaned over a polished table, with hands clasped, faces pale. A legal counsel spoke in clipped phrases. A compliance officer pulled up federal clauses on a laptop. Mara Whitfield sat stiff-backed, her tablet dark, as if she did not trust it anymore. Someone asked, "Do we terminate Crane immediately?" Someone else answered, "He is already gone." They drafted letters. They argued over language. They kept circling one fact and failing to soften it. Their CEO had struck a nurse in public, then tried to end her employment while federal protective status was active in their own record system. When the meeting ended, 2 board members walked quickly into the ER corridor, escorted by a hospital administrator who looked like he might faint. Donna saw them coming and stepped forward, shoulders squared. "We need to speak with Ms. Quinn," the administrator said, voice strained. Donna did not move aside. "She is in patient care," Donna replied. "Say it here or come back later." One of the board members, the silver-haired man, lifted his hands slightly, palms forward. "We do not want to interrupt treatment," he said. "We need a moment when she can step out." Donna's eyes narrowed. "You had your moment when she was standing in the lobby with a bruise," she said. The man's face tightened with shame. "You are right," he said quietly. "We failed her." Donna studied him for a long beat, then turned and walked toward Sierra. Sierra was finishing documentation on a patient who had finally stopped vomiting. She capped her pen and slid the chart into place. Donna approached, voice low. "The board is here," she said. "They want to talk." Sierra's eyes flicked toward the corridor, then back to her station. "I have 5 minutes," she replied. Donna walked beside her as Sierra stepped into a small consult room near triage. The board members and the administrator stood when she entered, too quickly, too stiffly, as if they had been trained by fear. Sierra remained standing. She did not offer a handshake. The silver-haired board member spoke first. "Ms. Quinn, we are issuing a formal apology for the conduct of Elliot Crane. He has been removed from his position, effective immediately. We are cooperating fully with federal authorities." Sierra's face did not change. "Good," she said. The administrator held out a folder with both hands. "This includes reinstatement back pay and an immediate salary adjustment," he said. "Also, enhanced protections for nursing staff. We are implementing a new workplace violence policy with enforcement mechanisms." Sierra glanced at the folder, but did not take it. "Put it on the table," she said. The administrator hesitated, then set the folder down carefully like it might bite. Another board member, younger, spoke with a tremor in his voice. "We would like to ask if you are willing to accept a leadership role. Nursing Director for Emergency Services. We understand you have experience that could benefit the institution." Sierra looked at him. Her eyes were calm, but the room felt smaller under them. "I am not interested in a title," she said. The silver-haired man cleared his throat. "Then what are you interested in?" Sierra's voice stayed even. "Training," she replied, "standards. Protection that is real, not a poster on a wall." Donna watched the board members' faces change as they realized this was not a negotiation for money. It was a demand for structure. Sierra continued. "Your nurses are exhausted. They are afraid of patients. They are afraid of doctors. They are afraid of administration. Fear makes hands shake. Fear makes errors. You want safety, you build discipline." The younger board member nodded rapidly. "Yes, absolutely. We will do whatever you recommend." Sierra did not smile at the eagerness. "Then start with something simple," she said. "No one in this hospital touches a nurse or any staff member and keeps their job. Not quietly, not later, immediately." The silver-haired man nodded, agreed. Sierra's gaze went to the administrator. "Second," she said, "I want mandatory simulation drills. Not once a year. Weekly. Under stress." The administrator swallowed. "Weekly is a lot," he began. Sierra's eyes did not change. "So is dying," she replied. Donna felt a tight surge of satisfaction she refused to show. Sierra looked back to the board. "I will stay in the ER," she said. "I will train anyone who wants to learn. Nurses, residents, attending security transport. Anyone who stands in the current. You will give me time and space to do it." The silver-haired man nodded again. "Done," he said. Sierra finally reached out and picked up the folder, not opening it, just holding it. "I will read this later," she said. "Right now, I am needed." She walked out without waiting for dismissal. Donna followed, leaving the board members staring after them, unsure whether they had been spared or disciplined. The change began that same night. They cleared a section of an unused conference space near the ER and brought in simulation gear. A crash cart, a mannequin, old monitors that still worked, a set of speakers for alarm sounds. Donna set up a sign in plain black letters. "Stress drill. Mandatory." The first session pulled in a skeptical crowd. A cluster of nurses' arms folded, a few residents trying to look indifferent. 2 security officers standing near the door. Dr. Halverson showed up, face controlled. Dr. Reed stood in the back, eyes fixed on Sierra, with a kind of quiet intensity. Sierra walked in wearing scrubs, no badge of rank, no ceremony. Her bruise was still visible, though it had started to yellow at the edges. She looked at the room, then at the mannequin, then back at them. "Everyone breathe," she said. A resident laughed under his breath. "We breathe all day." Sierra turned her head toward him. "Not fast. Not angry. Just direct." "Not like you need," she replied. The laugh died. Sierra raised her hand and placed 2 fingers on the side of her neck, demonstrating. "Find your pulse," she said. "Do it now." People glanced at each other, awkward, then complied. Fingers to throats, wrist checks, a few embarrassed smiles. Sierra watched them. "Your first enemy is not the injury," she said. "It is your heart rate. When it spikes, your hands get stupid." A nurse in the front swallowed hard. "My hands don't get stupid," she muttered. Sierra nodded as if accepting the challenge. "We will see," she said. Donna hit a switch. The speakers blared with layered alarms. A strobe light began to flash in uneven patterns. A recorded voice called out conflicting information. Blood pressure dropping. Allergies unknown. Family screaming in the hallway. Several people flinched. One resident's eyes widened. Sierra did not raise her voice over the noise. She lowered it. "Internal 0, she said, almost conversational. "That moment when you stop being dragged by the room and start steering it." She pointed to the mannequin. "You have 30 seconds, she said. "Do the first right thing." They surged forward, bumping shoulders, hands reaching for supplies, voices overlapping. A nurse grabbed the wrong size airway. A resident tried to push medication without checking a line. A security officer hovered uselessly at the edge. Sierra stepped in calm and stopped 2 hands with a light touch. "Slow," she said to the resident. "Name the problem." The resident blinked, breathing hard. "Low pressure," he shouted. Sierra nodded. "That is a number," she replied. What is failing? The resident's mouth opened, then closed. He swallowed, thinking. Volume, he finally said. Bleeding. Sierra nodded once. Now act like you know it, she said. She did not do the work for them. She guided. She corrected posture. She shortened sentences. She taught them to speak in clean commands instead of panic. Donna watched the room shift from chaotic motion to coordinated motion, inch by inch. It was not pretty, but it was real. After the drill, people stood sweating faces, flushed, breathing heavy. The alarms had stopped, but their bodies still carried the echo. Sierra looked at them and spoke quietly. This is not punishment, she said. This is armor. Dr. Reed stepped forward, voice hesitant. You always look calm, he said. How? Sierra glanced at his face, then at his hands. Calm is trained, she replied. You do not wait for it to arrive. Halverson cleared his throat, pride swallowed down. That rap you did on the junctional bleed, he said. Can you show us again? Sierra nodded. Tomorrow, she said. Bring gauze. Bring humility. A few people laughed, but the laugh was thin and respectful, not mocking. Over the next weeks, the ER started to change in small, visible ways. Voices lowered. Orders became cleaner. Nurses stopped apologizing for speaking. Residents learned to listen before they filled the air. Security began training with clinical staff instead of standing apart like a separate species. Sierra stayed in the center of it, not as a celebrity, not as a commander, just as a steady force that did not bend. One morning, as she finished a dressing change on a child with a fractured arm, the boy watched her bruise now fading. Did someone hit you? He asked, voice small. Sierra tied the last knot, gentle and precise. I got hurt, she said. Did it hurt bad? He asked. Sierra smoothed the gauze and met his eyes. Not as bad as being scared, she replied. The boy nodded as if that made sense, then relaxed into the pillow. Later that day, the mailroom cart rolled into the ER corridor with a stack of envelopes and small boxes. The clerk pushed it slowly, reading names, dropping items into bins. Donna was at the nurse's station when the clerk stopped and held up a package that looked out of place among the hospital mail. It was small, heavy for its size, wrapped in plain brown paper. A red and blue seal marked the edge. The label was typed precise. Sierra Quinn. The clerk looked at Donna. This one has a signature requirement, he said. Donna's eyes narrowed, from where she asked. The clerk shrugged. It came through priority channels, he said. No return address you would recognize. Sierra approached hands-clean posture, calm. She looked at the package and did not touch it right away. Donna watched her face. Do you want me to take it? Donna asked. Sierra shook her head once. She reached out, signed the clipboard with neat handwriting, and accepted the package with both hands as if it contained something fragile. For a moment, she stood still in the middle of the ER noise, holding a sealed weight that did not belong to hospital life. Her expression unreadable as alarms and footsteps moved around her. Sierra held the package at chest level as the ER moved around her carts, rolling monitors, chiming voices, calling names. The brown paper was plain, but the seal on the edge was not. It looked official in a way that did not belong in a hospital mail bin. Donna watched her face. Take it to the office, Donna said quietly. Open it somewhere you can breathe. Sierra nodded once and walked toward an empty consult room near triage. The door clicked shut behind them, muting the department's noise to a distant wash. A single fluorescent light hummed overhead. The room smelled like dry paper and alcohol wipes. Donna stayed by the door, with her arms crossed like she was guarding a perimeter with nothing but stubbornness. Sierra set the package on the table and stared at it for a long moment. Her hands were steady, but her breathing had changed barely, as if her ribs were bracing against something. You do not have to open it right now, Donna said. Sierra's eyes stayed on the seal. I should, she replied. She slid a finger under the taped edge and peeled it back carefully, slow enough not to tear the paper. Inside was a smaller box wrapped in dark blue tissue. The tissue parted with a soft crackle. Sierra lifted the lid. A patch lay on deep blue silk, pristine and vivid. A crimson bird with wings spread embroidery clean enough to look new under a microscope. Crimson wren stitched beneath it in tight, disciplined thread. Under the patch was a letter folded once thick paper, a faint embossing at the top. Sierra did not pick it up right away. Donna leaned forward, eyes fixed on the patch like it was a live wire. Donna's voice dropped. "They found you." Sierra's mouth tightened, then softened again. "They never stopped knowing," she said. She lifted the letter and unfolded it. Her eyes moved across the page in quick, silent lines. The room remained quiet, except for the paper's soft rustle. Donna could see Sierra's throat work once as she swallowed. Donna waited, then asked gently, "What does it say?" Sierra read a line again, then spoke without drama, as if she were reading discharge instructions. "It is from command," she said. "It says they salute my choice. It says whether I am on a desert floor or in a hospital bed, my focus stays the same." Donna's eyes flicked to Sierra's bruise, now fading to yellow at the edges. "Do they want you to go back?" Sierra folded the letter carefully, making the crease match the original. "They want me to be safe," she replied. Donna's shoulders dropped a fraction. "And are you?" Sierra looked at the patch again, the clean red thread, the sharp lines, the symbol of a life she had buried under scrubs. "Right now," she said, "I am here." Donna nodded once firm. "Then you keep being here," she said, "and the building learns how to deserve it." Sierra placed the patch back on the silk and closed the box. She did not treat it like a trophy. She treated it like a piece of equipment, something that carried meaning and weight, but did not change what needed to be done next. Outside the consult room, a call light chimed. A nurse's voice rose with urgency. Donna opened the door, and the ER noise rushed in again. Sierra carried the box to her locker, slid it onto the top shelf, and locked the door. Then she washed her hands and stepped back into the flow. Over the next days, the new rhythm held. The board's apologies stayed mostly on paper, but their fear translated into action. Security protocols tightened. Reporting lines became clearer. A workplace violence notice went up on walls that used to hold only fundraiser flyers and outdated safety slogans. Staff stopped laughing when someone mentioned consequences. Sierra's drills continued twice a week, then 3 times, when Donna pushed hard enough to make it happen. The conference space near the ER turned into a controlled chaos lab. Lights flashed. Alarms played. Recorded voices shouted conflicting commands. Staff learned to breathe anyway. The first time a resident tried to joke his way through the drill, Sierra stopped him with 2 quiet words. "Pulse check." He rolled his eyes, then complied. His fingers pressed into his neck. Sierra watched his face. "You can feel it," she said. "It is already climbing." "Fix that first." He scoffed. "How?" Sierra pointed to the floor in front of him. "Feet planted," she said. "Exhale, longer than you inhale." He did it once sloppy. She did not correct him with anger. She simply waited steady as a metronome until he did it again with more control. When the alarms started, his hands shook less. It was not magic. It was repetition. Nurses began showing up early to drills instead of late. Security officers stopped hovering at the edge and started moving into roles. Transport learned how to clear a hallway without shouting. Dr. Halverson started watching, then practicing, then asking questions without defensiveness. One afternoon, he found Sierra at the supply cart, restocking gauze with her usual precision. "I used your wrap technique in trauma this morning," he said, voice quiet. "Junctional bleed." It worked. Sierra did not look up. "Good," she replied. Halverson shifted his weight. Pride tried to rise and then fell back into something more honest. "I wrote you off," he admitted. "I thought kindness was weakness." Sierra placed the gauze in a straight line and closed the drawer. "Kindness is control," she said. "It keeps the room from turning into a fight." Halverson nodded. "And Crane," he began. Sierra's eyes lifted, calm but firm. "Do not bring his name into my hands," she said. Halverson swallowed. "Understood," he replied. In the corridors, the change was visible in small gestures. People made space for nurses instead of expecting them to shrink. Doctors stopped speaking over staff and started speaking with them. When Sierra walked past, heads did not turn with gossip anymore. They turned with attention. She did not demand it. She did not invite it. It happened anyway. One evening, Donna stood at the nurse's station and watched a new hire barely out of orientation hesitate before approaching a belligerent patient. The new nurse's face was tight with fear. Sierra stepped beside her and spoke quietly. "Do not match his volume," she said. "Give him a tone he can copy." The new nurse swallowed and nodded. Sierra did not take over. She stayed close eyes on the patient's hands posture, ready. The new nurse spoke in a low, steady voice, and the patient's shoulders lowered by degrees. The situation did not become calm, but it stayed contained. The nurse's hands steadied. Afterward, the new nurse exhaled hard. "I thought he was going to hit me," she said. Sierra nodded once. "You thought?" she replied. "Next time, breathe first." Donna watched the scene and felt the familiar surge in her chest, equal parts pride and rage, that it had taken violence for the hospital to recognize what had been standing beside them all along. Sierra stayed late that night to finish charts. When she finally walked out, the sky above Fayetteville was a deep navy, the air cold enough to sting the inside of her nose. The parking lot was quieter now. The black SUVs were gone. The generals were gone. Only the building remained lit up like a ship at sea. At home, her apartment was still spare, still orderly. She washed her hands. She changed clothes. She moved through her routine without hesitation until she reached the closet. Sierra pulled out the wooden box and set it on her bed. The dial lock turned under her fingers precise. Click. She opened the lid. Inside lay the old patch, the burned edge dark and rough. The crimson bird was dulled by dust and time. Next to it, the tarnished silver cross sat like a small, anchored weight, the engraved date catching the light when she tilted it. Sierra lifted the new patch from its box and held it over the old one. The clean embroidery looked almost unreal beside the charred fabric. Her thumb traced the crisp new thread, then drifted to the burned edge of the old patch, touching the darkened seam with gentle pressure. Her breathing changed again, barely, as if her ribs had remembered something they had worked hard to forget. She placed the new patch beside the old one, not replacing it, not covering it, just resting them together, two versions of the same name. She set the letter beneath them, folded neatly, and closed the lid with care. Before she turned the dial, she picked up the cross. It was cool against her skin. Her fingers tightened once, then eased. She set it back down and pressed her palm lightly to the lid of the box, holding still. In the distance, a low rumble threaded through the night, faint at first. Sierra's head lifted. She walked to the window and looked out toward the hospital skyline, a bright cluster in the dark. The rumble grew into a steady roar. 4 helicopters moved across the sky in formation, black shapes against the night. Their rotors beat the air with a cadence that felt deliberate, not accidental. As they passed over Pinecrest Regional, their noses dipped in a controlled motion, a brief, precise gesture that read like a salute. The city below kept living. Cars moved. Streetlights burned. Most people never looked up. Sierra looked up. Her hand did not reach for the patch. It did not reach for the cross. It settled over her chest, palm flat, as if checking the steady rhythm beneath. Her face softened into something that was not quite a smile, but close enough to recognize. Then the helicopters continued on their sound, fading into the distance until the night returned to its usual quiet. The next morning, Sierra walked into Pinecrest Regional through the employee entrance, as she always had. Lewis, the security guard, nodded at her, then stood a little straighter. Donna handed her a fresh trauma assignment without comment, but her eyes held a hard, protective warmth. Sierra tied her hair back, washed her hands, and stepped into the first room of the day. No ceremony, no announcement, just work. If you felt the weight of this story, leave a comment and tell me where you are watching from. And if you want more stories told with this kind of detail, hit like, subscribe, and stay with the channel.